ultimate.
What's that?
That's the ultimate.
Ultimate, right. So this is surrendering completely all the activities unto me with consciousness firmly established in the knowledge of self being, without any desire or gain, free from proprietorship, fight without grief. And that's the ultimate way to live life. So meditation, it develops your being in such a way that you can achieve what Krishna is trying to tell. So the knowledge of the self is the ultimate knowledge, and the knowledge of the self is what's going to ultimately bring revolution in your life. Because say if you don't know anything, you go to college, you become a doctor, or you become an engineer, or you're a computer programmer, yes, and what will it do for you? Okay, you will have big mansions and money and this and that, but all those gains are still built into the material world. Until you have the knowledge of the infinite, which is the true knowledge, that's the ultimate knowledge of the reality, which is the real thing, versus this is all a dream. Whatever money you make in a dream stays in a dream. Whatever travel you do, all the pleasures you had, stays in the dream. Once the dream breaks, it's gone. So the finite things gives you finite gains, and finite things gives you finite losses. But gains should not make you happy, because they are not going to last that long. And the losses should not make you unhappy either, because they're not going to last long either. If nothing for nothing, when your so-called life ends, you'll be back to your self-reality. So Gorakhnath, they said, the one guy came to Gorakhnath. He says, I want to commit suicide. So Gorakhnath says, go ahead. He says, what kind of sadhu are you? All the sadhus are telling me that you should not die, because this is a very precious human life, and they preach me this, but I don't see any meaning to the life. I want to die. Gorakhnath says, no, you go ahead, and you will find out you cannot die. At the soul level, there is nothing, there is no death. Right. Death is only to the body. Right. Body is only a possession that you have for temporarily. Right. Ultimately, that possession is going to die anyway, but that has nothing to do with the real death. You will realize then you will have another body and you have to live another life. Right. So I want you to realize your bigger picture, your total existence at the existential level. The reality says that you cannot die. So now what do you decide whatever you want to do? Whether you want to die, jis marni maro, this marni gorak mar ditha. So you want to die only once in life. And that death is the death of material concept. All the concepts which have been holding our mind, that I am this, my life is this, and all that, once you rise above those concepts, that's the death of material thinking, and that's the rise of spiritual power in your life. So, ismarni maro, jis marni gorakh mar ditha. So this is how Gorakh died. He said, this way you have to die only once. Otherwise you have to die thousands of times. Every time a new dream starts, in the dream you are caught up, then you fighting this and fighting for my wife and fighting for my girlfriend and fighting for my money and fighting for my house, like that shrimp, making a big house and this and that. Then everything is wiped off, like the ocean water comes in and the new tidal pool starts again and you start all over again. So it is better to die once rather than die 1,000 times. So that is the idea about spirituality, is to rise yourself and realize the exercise of meditation is to make you go closer to the higher existence. So our attitude, our outlook in the life will little by little changing. We just came from Delphi in Greece, and they have a beautiful statue called Charioteer. And these are the old ruins of the Greek civilizations and the Roman civilizations which had been buried, and they unearthed the whole town of Delphi. And the Delphi was considered the center of the universe. And according to that mythology, the Zeus is the ultimate, like Brahma, is the ultimate god. He set 2 eagles, one going west and one going east. And they both finally went around the globe and met at Delphi. So Delphi was considered the power of house of spiritual awakening. And in those days, they used to have the oracles. Oracles were given out. Oracles is like predictions. And apparently, virgins would be kept with a big fire, and they will go into trance and will speak out these oracles. And according to those oracles, I mean, again, at those days, this is all they had to believe in. There was no science developed. So, what's that? So these oracles, the kings will use to decide whether to go for battle or not, and which country to invade, and all those things. Now, obviously, when the kings come, so there was a lot of money will have to be offered to get an oracle. So it was a business, right?
Right.
But they had the whole town of Delphi, they're trying to recreate and all that. But we saw the picture of how the town. So one of the statue was the statue of the charioteer, and the charioteer had the reins and then the horses. So the rest of the chariot is destroyed, but the charioteer himself is standing. So to learn spirituality from this, we have to understand that our mind and the body, the mind with its 10 senses, the 5 senses of perception, 5 organs of action are the 10 horses, and we perform in the outside world. But ultimately the charioteer is the infinite consciousness that is controlling all the horses and the field where the horses are going. So you have to reflect, and the statue of the charioteer is a bronze statue, and if you look at his eyes, our tour guide, because the eyes are not really focused anywhere.
Yeah.
It's very beautiful, very symbolic, and our tour guide missed it completely, but at least that's the way I took it, so maybe you cannot say she missed it, or I missed it, maybe I overemphasized it. But basically the eyes of the charioteer statue, if you look at it, like if you enter in a room and then leave the room, and you cannot tell where he's looking at.
Or
yeah,
it's
kind of looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not focusing anywhere, right? So if you really think about it, if you become a charioteer, which you are, we all are at the spiritual level, and you perform in this world, right? Now you are walking with an attitude of a charioteer who has won the war, so-called war on materialism. You have nothing to gain.
And there is no goal.
There is no goal. There is no loss.
Right.
So you really don't have to focus on anybody or anything. You are in a kind of a trance, and you're walking around basically being happy for no reason, because you are connected with the bliss. So that was my interpretation, but her interpretation was that because he had won the war, so he was in a very happy, euphoric mood, that he didn't pay attention to anybody, kind of. It was very interesting discussion on charioteers. So someday you should look at the Google image at least of the charioteer. It's a beautiful, beautiful statue. But that's how it will happen to you. Once you realize that you are the charioteer, you are not the chariot, you are not the horses, you are not the senses. And if you cannot control your own chariot, how can you blame the horses? Horses as your senses. Oh, I wanted to, but I could not. I keep on craving for this. I could not stop smoking. I could not stop drinking. I mean, how can a charioteer blame the horses when he himself cannot control the horses, right? This is exactly what we're doing, right? So shift of the power has to happen at the charioteer level, and that happens with meditation. Right now we're living the world of senses, so the senses are powerful.
They are taking
Horses are taking the whole cart. I had one guy yesterday. The guy says, basically he just likes to overeat, you know. But otherwise he's a nice guy. He says, I go to church and this and that, and I take care of my family, I have a nice job, I don't have any hanky-panky going on, but the only thing I just love to eat. I said, listen, there are 10 horses. 5 organs of perception is 5 horses. Your eyes, your touch, the smell, hearing, all these things through which you perceive the world. and then you have 10 and 5 organs of action: your arms, your legs, your tongue, and the 2 holes through which you perform an action in the world. Out of all the 10 horses, one horse decides to go and eat the pasture. The whole chariot has to go with it. I said, what good is that? You may be good loving husband, but you dead at 46 with a heart attack.
Right.
And it has happened. I have had cases like that. 46, the guy is dead because he had to have pizza every day. Wife is now jobless and now she's looking for a job. 2 girls grew up without father and they are into drugs and all that. You know, it's sad. But the whole chariot broke down because we put the importance on the horses. Oh, horses are like, we put the blame on the horses.
On one horse.
On a one horse. For some people it's multiple horses. Or all 10 horses. But that's how our lower mind has to be looked at, that there is an existence of a higher mind which is full of vitality, full of spirit, full of intellect, ability to decide right from wrong. And when you go to that level, all the material pleasures do not look like anything. So I always quote the shairi from Rajni's always like that, Pehle sharab jist thi. Jist means jindagi. Sharab was life. Sharab jist thi, ab jist hai sharab. Koi pila raha hai, main piye ja raha hu. Every single moment becomes drinking of that nectar of the spirituality. So when that happens, you are drinking all the time, and yet you are not drinking. Somebody is feeding you, and you're drinking all the time. You are bathing in the light of spirituality. You are drinking the nectar of spirituality. And at that time, sharab has no value. So at the charioteer level, all the material things seem kind of useless. Even your speech seems useless. What you speak, what you think, what you act, all these things seem so useless because they are the tools. They are the tools given to you to perform in the world. But keeping the spirit behind you and offering everything again back to Him. But we have lost that focus. Our ego has risen in between, and now we're doing everything to the ego. The ego has become our new God instead of the God that used to be. Animals were doing it subconsciously. They were doing everything to the God. But now our so-called ego has risen. So we're doing everything for the ego. So the power of non-doing you can realize only once you realize your infinite existence, which cannot speak, which cannot touch, we cannot smell. At that level, silence is the language, existence is the pleasure, because just the existence alone gives you so much pleasure that material possessions don't have value, because your existence is so beautiful. Your moan or your silence is so beautiful that words lose their value too. So you have to synchronize at some point in meditation to start realizing that you are that consciousness. And that consciousness is beautiful because 1, it exists, and 2, is silence, is total moan, and the bliss that comes with it. The bliss is a relative thing, believe it or not. It's not, there is a positive potential pleasure coming out of it, but after realizing the material world was the one which was making your life miserable, now does not have that power anymore. So inner so-called bliss comes out. That doesn't mean once you are in a bliss you're going to be laughing for no reason and nothing is going to change outside, but inside is where the change has taken place. Now you have total peace. The peace is bliss. So all these are characteristics of consciousness: the peace, the bliss, silence. So you have to start identifying yourself with that state. So I always quote, Rajneesh says, how do you enjoy a flower, right? You have not enjoyed a flower until you become a flower. You look at a flower, you appreciate the beauty, you appreciate the fragrance, and you see the beauty, how it is, swinging in the wind, and when the wind comes, and you have not enjoyed the flower. When you look at a purple flower, you become purple. You sit there and meditate on one flower for half an hour. You will become purple. You forget about everything else. The fragrance will be coming out of you. And when the wind comes, you will be moving with the flower. Then you have enjoyed the flower. So like that, when you meditate, you become silence. You do not become silent. Becoming silent is an action. Action is performed at the mind level and realized at the body level. If we do a retreat and Vijay says, don't talk, it's happening only at the body level. Mind is still racing, right? We have not enjoyed the silence.
It's your tongue talking, but you are silent.
Right. And the beautiful thing is, you can be, so when you synchronize yourself with the silence, what happens? One day, Deepak, I was in silence, and he asked me something. I want to say it, I cannot. I just have lost the capacity to speak because I'm silence. I am the silence. Silence is me. And I have identified myself with the silence. I have nothing to do with my physical body, nothing to do with my senses. So you be in that state. And that's so beautiful. At that time, even to speak a sentence, it becomes an effort. But once you start speaking, so you can be silence and still speak and be still in silence. Now it sounds, again, but that's the oxymoron, but that's how it is. It's like quantum theory. You know, in quantum theory, the results of the experiment change. Depends upon who is looking at it. So the very thin line between objects and subject, it changes. It's so blurry. And then ultimately everything fuzzy. So it's a fuzzy logic. Ultimately boils down to nothing but infinite energy, right? So this silence is a beautiful exercise that you can do in meditation. You start identifying with the silence. So sometimes you can keep an hour for yourself to be in silence, where you do not react, not to the friends, but not even to the world, nothing. You just remain silence, and that's it. So. The thing is that disturbances are everywhere. If you identify yourself with the disturbances, you are in the middle of disturbances. It's like you are on a balcony and watching a fight that's going on the street. If you don't take sides of anybody, what do you have to lose or what do you have to gain? Right. Whoever wins, wins. Whoever loses, loses. You have nothing to do with any of these things, so you just watch. So that's an observership. But when you go down and then get involved in the fight, then you start taking sides. Now you are in the middle of it. So the disturbances of the outside world should not be able to take you away from your silence. Because disturbances are outside and you have nothing to do with it. If you really go down to that level, right? So living the sansar doesn't help because your house may be noisy, but you go in a woods and the birds will be chirping. You go into Himalayas and then you have to worry about the food. Then you have to worry about the hunger and you have to worry about the money, you have to worry about the shelter. All those disturbances will be always there. So a disturbed mind will lead to disturbed environment, basically. Until you reach to this zone of silence, you have not achieved the peace. And once you achieve the peace of the spirituality, then outside doesn't matter. Whatever is happening outside, you're dead to the world. Right. So little by little, with a little practice, you will start recognizing that silence is so beautiful. And along with the silence, the infinite existence is so blissful. So once you realize that, and then you start acting in the outside world, you carry that silence with you, with every action that you are performing, and that's how you offer everything to Krishna. That silence is Krishna. Peace is Krishna. Bliss is Krishna. So everything is Krishna. So you offer everything to Him, like we said earlier, Mai Sarvani Karmani. Right? So, same way when you see someone else, anybody else, any person in your life you're looking at them as their material shape and material size and their existence and their appearances and all that. But deep inside, they have the same silence. So at some point, you should be able to get by that too. Because right now, you're doing it to yourself, within yourself. And you're coming out of the material existence of your body and the mind, and you're recognizing your soul. The same way, opposite person, they also have a body, they also have the mind, and they have the soul. So if you start spreading the meditation itself in your daily life, and your day-to-day existence also will help you with the more understanding and more contemplation on all these facts, you realize that opposite person also has a finite body and a finite mind, but they also have infinite soul. And then you're interacting at the soul level. So Mahavir and Buddha, they connected with everybody at the soul level with deep realization that deep inside there is nothing but soul. I was reading up Vasistha's yoga the other day. He says, it's strange, but every time you dig in a soil, you will find a hole. So ultimately, it's everywhere. He said, wherever you dig, there's going to be a hole there. So every person you see, there's going to be a soul there. So it's simple how universal the Atma is. But again, these are the stages of the samadhi. See, all the Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga. So you dhyan, dharna and samadhi. So dhyan is reflecting upon yourself, but dharna is outside. And then samadhi is non-dual state, where you accept the existence of soul everywhere else. So these are the steps we're taking into meditation now. And then we'll go how to put this in our day-to-day life so that our meditation becomes 24/7. So we'll talk about that in next time. So much for today.
Thank you.
All right.